Hey everyone, we are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Hold on. Did you just see that? Because if you didn't catch what Warren Sharp just dropped on the internet, you need to rewind. You need to rewatch that clip. And then you need to sit down. Because what we are about to break down today is not just good news for Chicago Bears fans. This is a certified seismic event in the NFL schedule world, and most people are sleeping on it. I'm Fave. This is Favs. And today we are going all the way in on why the Chicago Bears might be the most secretly advantaged team in the entire National Football League heading into the 2026 season. Buckle up. This one is going to go deep. Let's set the scene first, because context is everything. The Bears just came off an 11-win regular season in 2025, won the NFC North for the first time since 2018, and picked up their first playoff win in 15 years. Ben Johnson came in, grabbed Caleb Williams by the hand, and turned what was a 5-win disaster in 2024 into a legitimate contender practically overnight. The city of Chicago was rocking. The bandwagon was full. And then the 2026 schedule dropped, and at first glance, Bears fans nearly had a collective heart attack. According to ESPN's reporting on the 2026 NFL schedule release, the Bears are facing the hardest strength of schedule in the entire league. Their opponents combined for a .550 win percentage last season. 7 playoff teams on the schedule. It looked brutal on paper. The discourse online was grim. People were already writing the obituary. Too hard. Too soon. Can't repeat. And then Warren Sharp opened his laptop and said, "Not so fast." Now, for those who don't know Warren Sharp, let me put you on. Warren Sharp runs Sharp Football Analysis, and he is widely considered one of the most respected data analysts in professional football. Coaches know his name. Betting markets move based on his work. When this man drops a thread, the football world listens. And what he dropped about the Bears' 2026 schedule is nothing short of extraordinary. Here's where it starts. According to Sharp's published analysis on Sharp Football Analysis, the Chicago Bears ranked 29th in prep and rest rankings in the prior season, and 25th in net rest ranking with a minus 4-day disadvantage. In plain English, over the course of 18 weeks in 2025, the Bears had less rest and less preparation time than their opponents on a net basis. They were being handed a structural disadvantage before the ball was even snapped. And you know what they did with that disadvantage? They went 11-2 straight up, with no rest deficit. 11-1 against the spread, which Sharp himself noted was a plus 75% return on investment. When betting on them, the best mark in the entire NFL that season. My guy Ben Johnson was cooking with a broken stove and still served a 5-star meal. That's the level we're dealing with. But now the table has been completely flipped. According to Sharp Football Analysis's published 2026 schedule rest disparity breakdown, the Chicago Bears rank number 1 in prep and rest rankings. Number 1. In the entire NFL, and their net rest advantage, plus 15 days. Let me say that again louder for the people in the back. Plus 15 days. That is the second largest net rest edge for any team in the entire NFL since 1990. Not just this year, not just this decade. Since 1990, that's over 3 decades of NFL football. 32 teams every year, and only one team in history has ever done this better. The Bears plus 15 days of net rest is also the most in franchise history. Per Sharp's data, they'd only eclipsed 8 days of net rest one other time, back in 2023, at plus 12. This is uncharted territory for this organization. And Fave's personal take? This is the universe paying the Bears back for years of suffering. Bears fans have been through Matt Nagy, Mark Trestman, and every other coaching disaster imaginable. They watched their team go from Lovie Smith's Super Bowl run to absolute bottom-of-the-barrel irrelevance. The schedule gods owe Chicago. And in 2026, they're collecting. Now, let's talk about what that plus 15 actually means in practice. Because the number alone doesn't tell the whole story. Per the analysis from Sharp Football Analysis, the Bears play 5 games in 2026, where they have a rest edge over their opponent, tied for the most in the entire NFL. But it's not just quantity, it's quality. Chicago plays 4 games with a plus 3-day rest advantage. That is a massive edge. A plus 3 rest advantage means your team had significantly more time to practice, film study, recover from injuries, and game plan than the opponent walking into that stadium, when your coaching staff is already elite. And we'll get to why Ben Johnson's staff makes this even more lethal. That extra time is not wasted. It is weaponized. Let's run through where those advantages show up on the actual schedule. Per Sharp's breakdown, the Bears get a plus 3 rest edge in Week 8 against the Seattle Seahawks. coming off a Thursday night football home game, so Chicago gets extra days while Seattle comes in fresher off their own schedule, but the Bears still edge them on rest. Then, after the bye week in Week 10, 4 of the 5 rest advantage games are at home. Saints at home, Jaguars at home, Packers at home, Lions at home. 4 out of 5 rest advantage games happen at Soldier Field. No travel, no flights, no hotel rooms, no time zone adjustments. Your guys sleep in their own beds, practice on their own field, and get to dig deeper into the film room while the opponent is burning energy getting to Chicago. Think about what that means for a team like Jacksonville. The Jaguars have to pack up, fly north, potentially into cold weather, into a loud, hostile stadium, against a well-rested home team that's had more time to find every weakness in Jacksonville's game. That's not just an advantage, that's a trap. Soldier Field becomes a haunted house, and the Bears are the ones who designed it. And here's the kicker that Fave wants you to really absorb. 4 of those games are in the second half of the season. According to the analysis, the Bears have 4 rest edge games after Week 10, with 0 games at a rest deficit after the bye. 0. When bodies are breaking down, when injuries are piling up, when rosters are thin and coaches are exhausted, the Bears will be the freshest team in their division. That's when rest advantages do their real damage. Early in the year, everyone's healthy and hyped. Week 14, Week 15, Week 16, when the season is on the line, the fresher team wins close games. And close games are how you win divisions. Now let's compare the Bears to the rest of the NFC North, because this is where it gets truly nasty for the competition. According to the data reported by Sharp Football Analysis and covered across multiple NFL media outlets this week, no other NFC North team cracks the top 10 in net rest ranking. The Bears are number 1 in the league. The Minnesota Vikings are 11th at plus 4.5 days. The Detroit Lions are at plus 1. The Green Bay Packers are at minus 2. Think about that gap. Chicago has a 15-day net rest advantage. Green Bay has a minus 2. That's a 17-day swing between the best team in the division on this metric and the worst. Over the course of 18 weeks, that's enormous. Fave's opinion, the Packers are going to feel that, especially late in the season when Jordan Love's body is grinding down and Chicago's defense is getting an extra day of film study before every divisional matchup. And speaking of divisional matchups, let's talk about the specific rest edges the Bears enjoy against the teams that matter most on their schedule. Per Sharp's analysis, Chicago has key rest edges versus several tough opponents. Plus 3 against the Seahawks in Week 8, a team that went above .500 last year. Plus 3 against the Jaguars in Week 13. And the big one? Plus 3 against the Detroit Lions in Week 17. The Lions won 9 games last year, beat the Bears twice, and are one of the most physically punishing teams in the NFC. Getting a 3-day rest edge against Detroit in a late-season divisional game that could determine playoff seeding? That is potentially a season-defining advantage. And that's not all. The Bears also have rest edges in home games against the Packers. In a division this tight, where any of the 4 teams could win it, these structural advantages in late-season divisional games could be the difference between hosting a playoff game and watching the postseason from the couch. Now let me push back on the people who are going to say rest advantage doesn't matter that much. It's just a couple of days. Because the data says otherwise. Warren Sharp's historical analysis shows that there is a very strong correlation between having a net rest advantage of at least plus 7 days and making the playoffs. Per the data, 5 teams had at least a plus 7 net rest advantage last year. The top 3 of those teams won 12 or more games. 12 or more wins is an NFC championship level team in most years. This isn't a theory, this is a pattern backed by decades of data. And here's the historical number that should absolutely terrify every other team in this division. Since 2020, the Bears were an NFL worst 0-9 straight up, 0-9, and 1-8 against the spread when playing with a rest deficit of at least 3 days. 0 and 9. They cannot function when they're the tired team. But per Sharp's analysis, they go to a 55% cover rate against the spread when they have any rest edge at all, ranking them as the 4th best team in the NFL in that scenario. The Bears are built to dominate when rested, and they collapse when they're exhausted. So what does the 2026 schedule give them? The most rest advantage in the entire NFL and 0 games with a minus 3-day deficit. Not one. The system has been specifically set up for them to thrive. Let's talk about the 2 rest deficit games the Bears do have, because even those are manageable. Per the breakdown in the source material, Chicago's only rest deficit games are -1 against the New York Jets and -1.5 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Week 9. Both are at home. Let me repeat that. Even their worst rest spots happen at Soldier Field. The Jets, with all due respect, are one of the worst franchises in football right now. Best case scenario for New York is a scrappy 6 or 7 win team. Playing the Jets at home with a one-day rest deficit in the first half of the season when nobody's body is beat up yet? I'd sign up for that nightmare all day. And Tampa Bay is a capable team. The Buccaneers have talent, but a -1.5-day deficit at home is not the kind of thing that breaks a season. These aren't the games that are going to derail Chicago's year. These are the most tolerable version of a rest disadvantage that you could possibly construct. And then there's the other component that's been discussed alongside the rest data. The Bears play 0 games against teams coming off a bye week in 2026. 0. Per multiple sources covering the schedule release, some teams have 4 games against opponents coming off their bye. Having 0 is a massive structural gift. When a team comes off their bye week, they've had an extra week of rest and preparation. Their coaches have had 14+ days to game plan. Their injured players have had time to heal. They are locked in. Facing 0 teams in that situation is the football equivalent of never having to take a final exam. Meanwhile, teams with 4 games against bye-week opponents are walking into 4 traps throughout the season, where the opposing coach had twice as long to prepare. The Bears also rank 30th in air miles traveled, meaning they take some of the fewest flights of any team in the NFL this season. Per the analysis discussed in the source material, they are 3rd fewest in air miles across all 32 teams. Less travel means less fatigue accumulating in players' bodies over 18 weeks. It means fewer disrupted sleep schedules, fewer days of mental fog from time zone changes. Every advantage is small in isolation. But stack up number 1. In net rest, 0 games against bye-week opponents, bottom 3 in air miles traveled, 4 rest edge games at home in the second half of the season, and you start to see a picture emerge. The NFL schedule, whether intentionally or by accident, has handed the Chicago Bears a golden roadmap to the playoffs. Now, Fave wants to take a step back from the data for a second and talk about the human element, because data without context is just noise. What makes this rest advantage truly dangerous is who is sitting in the Bears coaching booth. Ben Johnson is not your average head coach. This is a man who took one of the most dysfunctional franchises in professional sports, inherited a young quarterback who was being written off after a rough first year, and turned the whole thing into a division champion in year 1. He's a chess player. He's an offensive mind who thinks 3 moves ahead. When you give a coach like Ben Johnson an extra 2 or 3 days to prepare for a game, you're not giving him time to watch the same film twice. You're giving him time to find things that most other coaches would never even look for. You're giving him time to install wrinkles that the opponent has never seen. You're giving him time to call Sunday's playlist on Friday instead of Saturday night. According to ESPN's reporting on the 2026 schedule, Johnson and the Bears will play in 7 standalone windows this season. Primetime games under the lights, where the spotlight is fully on Chicago. And per that same reporting, the NFL is clearly banking on the Bears as a marquee attraction, featuring them on Thursday Night Football, Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, and even holiday games on Thanksgiving and Christmas. The league doesn't put teams in those windows because they think they'll be bad. They put teams in those windows because they think they'll be compelling, competitive, and worth watching. That is the definition of respect from a league that follows the money. And the money says the Chicago Bears are must-see television. But here's the thing about those primetime games. 4 of the Bears' 7 primetime appearances are at home, at Soldier Field. Where the wind off Lake Michigan turns a mild evening into a frozen gauntlet by November. Where the crowd has been deprived of real playoff football for years, and is now absolutely ravenous. That's where the Bears get to perform under the brightest lights, with home field advantage, fully rested. That combination is genuinely frightening for opposing teams. Let's zoom out even further and talk about what this all means for the NFC North race, because at the end of the day, that's where the Bears' season will be won or lost. The Lions are still formidable. Detroit is a physical, aggressive, well-coached team that clearly has the talent to win this division. The Vikings under Kyler Murray. Yes, you heard that right. Kyler Murray is now in Minnesota after the trade this offseason, and he's already generating enormous buzz, are going to be dangerous. The Packers, with Jordan Love, are never going to roll over. Any of these 4 teams can win this division. That's what makes it one of the most compelling divisional storylines in the entire league heading into 2026. But when you break it down by the margins, and in this division, the margins are everything, the Bears have structural advantages that the other 3 teams simply do not have. The Vikings are plus 4.5 in net rest. Respectable, but they're not getting the same depth of benefit. The Lions are barely above 0. The Packers are negative. And Chicago is plus 15. When you're in a division where 4 teams are all legitimately good and the games could genuinely go either way, The team that's more rested in November and December is going to win more of those close games. Per Sharp's historical data, the Bears went 11-2 straight up with no rest deficit last year. They were perfect with advantages, and their only losses in rest neutral or slight deficit spots were in the games where they got caught tired with a 3+ day disadvantage, which they have 0 of this year. The math on this is stunning, and I want to make sure it lands. In 2025, the Bears went from 5 wins to 11 wins while playing with a -4 net rest disadvantage. They were the 29th ranked team in the league in prep and rest, and they still won 11 games, won the division, and knocked off Green Bay in the playoffs. With those same coaches, those same players, and now the #1 rest advantage in football? The ceiling is genuinely hard to calculate. If Ben Johnson squeezed 11 wins out of a disadvantaged team, what does he do with the most advantaged schedule in the league? And look, I want to be fair here. The strength of schedule is still the hardest in the NFL. Per the reporting from ESPN and Sharp Football Analysis, the Bears face 7 2025 playoff teams on their 2026 schedule. The opponents are legitimately tough. Nobody is saying this is going to be easy. The Eagles on Monday Night Football, the Seahawks, Detroit twice, Green Bay twice, Minnesota. These are real tests. But the thesis is not that the Bears have an easy schedule. The thesis is that, despite a brutally hard schedule in terms of who they face, the when and where and how rested they'll be gives them a legitimately unique structural edge that very few teams in NFL history have enjoyed. And here's one more layer that I haven't even touched yet: the bye week structure and how it sets up the back half of the Bears' season. Per the source material and Sharp's analysis, Chicago's bye falls in Week 10, right in the middle of the season. After that, bye. Over the final 8 games, 4 of them come with a rest edge and 0 come with a rest deficit. So you're entering the most physically demanding stretch of the season, the home stretch where teams are banged up, where depth charts start to get depleted, where the mental grind of an NFL season truly sets in. And the Bears are going to be fresher than everybody they face. After Week 10, the schedule essentially transforms into a series of structural advantages stacked on top of each other. Rest edges at home against divisional rivals. No travel fatigue. No games against bye-week opponents. It reads less like an NFL schedule and more like someone built it specifically to give Chicago the best possible shot at a playoff run. Fave's final personal opinion? This team is going to surprise people. Not in a, they won a few games they weren't supposed to kind of way. I'm talking about a legitimate deep playoff run. Ben Johnson knows how to use every edge available to him. He proved that last year when he had nothing going for him structurally and still built a winner. Now he has the best rest advantage in 30+ years of NFL football. 0 games against bye-week opponents, one of the softest travel schedules in the league, and a quarterback in Caleb Williams who is entering his 2nd year in the system and should be taking a massive leap. The Bears' wildcard win over the Packers last January averaged over 31 million viewers on Amazon Prime Video, per reporting from Yahoo Sports. 31 million. That's Super Bowl-adjacent attention for a wildcard game. The country is already watching. The NFL is already promoting them. The schedule is already built in their favor. All that's left is for the Chicago Bears to go out there and take what's been set up for them. Bear down, Chicago. All right, that's the breakdown, and I need you to do something for me right now before you go anywhere else. Smash that like button. Seriously, don't scroll past it. Hit it, because this kind of deep research takes real work, and your likes are what keep this channel going. Drop in the comments. How many wins do you have the Bears finishing with in 2026? I want the real numbers. Are we talking 10 wins? 12? A Super Bowl run? Tell me everything. No filter. And if you are not subscribed to Favs yet, what are you doing with your life? Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications, because we are covering every angle of the 2026 NFL season with the heat and the data and the drama that you are not going to find anywhere else. Fave out. We'll see you in the next one.